A friend of mine recently came to me with her plan. On the surface, it looked absolutely perfect. Simple, clear. She had this dream of achieving total financial freedom, and she thought she had it all mapped out. And this was her goal: 30,000 rupees every single month for the rest of her life, without ever having to work again. I mean, it's a dream so many of us have, right? To just have that income stream that takes care of everything forever. So she'd done the math. She figured she needed a corpus of 45 lakh rupees to make this dream a reality. And her numbers, they seemed to add up. But as we got to talking, it became really clear that there was one single devastating flaw in her plan, a blind spot that would cause the whole thing to completely collapse. So let's uncover what that flaw was. Okay, let's dive into this, because to really get why her plan was doomed to fail, you first have to understand why it looked so good on paper. So let's break down her numbers. First off, her starting point was actually pretty strong. As you can see, she'd already managed to pull together about 16 lakhs in liquid assets. And it's pretty well diversified, right? Stocks, mutual funds, retirement accounts, a really solid foundation to build on. And she wasn't just sitting on what she had. Her plan was to work for just 2 more years, socking away another 10 to 12 lakhs. After that, she was going to sell a piece of property for another 20 lakhs. The best part? No debt. So her path to that target seemed incredibly straightforward. And that's exactly how she landed on her magic number, 45 lakh rupees. She really believed this was the key. With this money, she could invest it, pull out 30,000 a month, and just live off the returns for the rest of her life. Simple, right? Well, or so she thought. So, what's the big deal? 45 lakhs generating 30,000 a month? Sounds pretty reasonable, doesn't it? But her whole plan, her entire calculation, it was resting on 2 very common and really dangerous assumptions. And this is exactly where everything starts to unravel. So the first problem was her expected rate of return. See, to pull 30 grand a month from 45 lakhs, she was banking on a pretty aggressive 10% annual return. But here's the thing, when you don't have a salary coming in anymore, you just can't afford to be that aggressive. You can't risk your main pot of money. A much safer, more realistic post-tax return you should plan for is somewhere around 7 to 8%. But that wasn't even the fatal flaw. Oh no, the real plan killer, the one mistake that just completely invalidates that 45 lakh number, is the one thing almost everybody forgets about. That silent wealth killer we call inflation. And this right here shows you the problem perfectly. Your expenses do not stay the same. With an average inflation of around 7% in India, your cost of living will basically double every 10 years. Just look at this timeline. That 30,000 rupees she needs today becomes 60,000 in just a decade. In 20 years, it's 1,20,000. Her fixed income plan just has no way of keeping up. So if her number was so wrong, then what's the right number? How do you actually figure out a corpus that can sustain you for life, one that actually grows along with inflation? Well, there's a much safer rule of thumb for this. It's called the 40x rule, and the logic behind it is actually really simple. You just take your total annual expenses, not monthly, but annual, and you multiply that by 40. This gives you a big enough pot of money that it can generate an income that'll grow with inflation over the long haul. Okay, so let's apply this rule to my friend's situation. Her lifestyle costs 30,000 a month, which works out to 3.6 lakhs a year. So what does the 40x rule say she actually needs? The real number isn't 45 lakhs, it's 1.4 crore rupees. I mean, that is more than 3 times what she had planned for. This was the massive reality check. The gap between her dream and what she actually needed was almost a full crore. And this table just puts it all into perspective. Her 45 lakh plan, with that flat 30,000 rupee income, it would have completely run out of money in about 10 to 12 years. And that's right around the time her daughter's higher education expenses would be kicking in. The 1.4 crore plan, on the other hand, is designed to last for decades because the withdrawals can increase each year to keep up with rising costs. Now look, this story isn't really just about my friend. It's a huge lesson for anyone who's dreaming of financial independence. It's just so easy to get the math wrong if you forget about the most important player in the game, inflation. So before you even think about quitting your job to live off your investments, please run through this checklist. You have to be able to say yes to these questions confidently. Your plan has to account for inflation, it has to last a long time, and you need a separate bucket for emergencies. And the big one, have you hit that 40x target? And that brings us to the final, most crucial question. Because this isn't about my friend's number anymore, it's about yours.
Take a minute, actually do the math. What is 40 times your annual expenses? Because knowing that number, the real number, that's the first and most important step to making financial freedom a reality.